So it's been about a year since Kagurabachi launched, and it's been a fun time. What started off as being a meme has very quickly turned into genuine enjoyment and excitement. Seeing the community grow has been really nice. Seeing a lot of people talk about it on social media, seeing a lot of YouTubers talk about it. It's just a fun time to be a part of this community. Watching it continue to expand, continue to have the same appreciation, continue just to be enjoyed and loved for what it is. I mean, what more could you want? I'm happy for it to be doing really well. I'm happy to see people's reaction when they find out the story isn't just a meme and there's a lot more to it. I'm happy that a lot of people were very vocal about not wanting leaks for this story. It's impressive what you as the community has done so far, and honestly, give yourself a round of applause, pat yourself on the back, just amazing. However, another round of applause has to go to the author. I think he's done a phenomenal job within the singular year that this story has been published. The amount of content that we've got, the texture, the aura, the atmosphere, the writing, characterization, just thematically, symbolically, like there's so many ways to describe it and go through it and just rattle off, but it just feels so well put together. I mentioned before intent, things being done with a purpose, with a set goal in mind, both writing and visually. When you have something crystal clear in your mind on how you want it to go and how you want to perceive it, how it's meant to be seen by others, it just comes across so fluidly, so nicely, with so much energy. That type of intent is something that I'm really addicted to for this story, and a reason why I constantly love to talk about it, because it feels so well adjusted, well aligned. And for a weekly experience, that might be difficult to come by because there's just so much going on in such a short amount of time, so frequently. Enough of the ramble though. Here's to a great first year of Kagurabachi. Congratulations to the author, congratulations to the community, and here's to a hopeful many more years to come. I'm happy to see this story doing well, and it has an incredibly bright future ahead of it.
I felt ugly, I felt gay, I felt that
the 50 chapter moment is kind of pivotal for a story, right? It's not as iconic as the 100 chapter mark, but it really sets a standard. This is your first year for a weekly story, and with what you've got over that 50 chapter period gives us as readers a really good understanding of what to expect in the future, what your next 50 chapters are going to look like. And they don't hold back. While it doesn't have the iconic nature of a 100 chapter mark, instead we get a lot of dialogue, stuff that we needed to know, stuff that we wanted to know, stuff that we were kind of itching to figure a little bit more about, and then even left with some questions. Let's talk about a monster in this room. We get revealed to a brand new sword bearer. His name is Mr. Samura. He is very interesting. I like him. A blind swordsman, very cliche, but not problematic. It's honestly one of the cooler cliches you can do, and there's no real explanation needed for why it is cool. It is a blind dude that wields a sword that can't see anything clearly, yet he is still inherently incredibly powerful. What more would you want? Now, I was curious if he was blind because of the war or during the war. Big difference. The way they talk about him makes it seem like he was blind during the war. So he would have potentially had his eye injuries, which is what it looks like, the reason why he's blind, before the war even started, or maybe even early within it. It's hard to tell. The way I grasp this is the way they talk about his keen sense of smell, extra kind of enhanced abilities because of the loss of his eyesight. This naturally would take time. Perhaps there is a small chance that over the years after the war ended, he became accustomed to it, but no one really seemed surprised. I really like his characteristics being kind of funny and quirky, very up in people's faces. He doesn't seem like a typical blind swordsman. He kind of just walks around, does whatever he wants, and is very open-minded and funny in a way. The one characteristic that I really love is when he's talking to people, he kind of grabs them by their face just to feel what they look like. Completely unnecessary, but honestly just adds just a nice level of detail to his character. Makes for some very weird and humorous moments. Now, they talk about this man in a monstrous type of way, that he is a problem. He is a difficult person to kill. And this is coming from Uraha. Now, we've seen a little bit of Uraha, and he's competent. He is a war veteran. This is without his sword. but the way he talks about Samura is like infinitely better. Perhaps he's being respectful, perhaps he's considering him an elder, someone that he sees as being higher or worthy, of course, but I genuinely think it comes down to just experience. Uraha seemed relatively young going into the war, and Samura doesn't seem that much older either, maybe 5-10 years. That might be enough to garner that type of experience. The level of difference that Uraha puts himself and Samura infinitely above him seems like it's night and day. So much so that the fortress that they go to where Samura actually is way better guarded than what Uraha's was, not because they have better reinforcements, but just because Mr. Samura is there and he's willing to fight with a normal sword. That's how scary he is. Just think for a second what Samura would have been like with his enchanted blade. What type of monstrosity are you letting out on the battlefield with a blind swordsman? And I wonder, super curious, on how his sword affects his ability to not see. Does that make sense? Because I imagine his sword perhaps would have been created with the intent of understanding his blindness, to utilize it, to weaponize it in such a magnificent way. So it could be very creative in that department, and I really want to see it. We do get introduced to people that provide the guidance to Hakuri and Uraha, and they use a teleportation technique. So we have another sorcerer in the midst that I hope is really going to help Hakuri understand himself, which is something that we need. So far, it's all been about the swordsman, but seeing a little bit more playfulness with the sorcery stuff makes me excited. The teleportation's pretty overpowered as well. I don't know the range or the distance of that thing, but clearly they've teleported straight from the door of the train opening all the way up to the temple front. That's impressive. This is where we get introductions. We also get a flashback on how Samura knew that Chihiro's father had a son because it was a secret and he was hidden away up in the mountains. His keen sense of smell kicked in very well. He accidentally met Chihiro as a child, and because of his keen sense of smell, he knew that it was his son. They seem like they're gonna have a pretty cute bond. Everyone seems to really love Chihiro, especially when it comes to his father and the respect ideology, how they view him in a really heroic type of way. So of course, that traversal going down to Chihiro and Chihiro pretty much respecting his father's legacy, keeping it alive, is a really passionate way to go about it. It brings up a question when it comes to Magutsumi or Shinichi on how potentially that person might view Chihiro's father. Because there's so much acknowledgement of Chihiro's father being so heroic, so well spoken about and respected, surely there's gonna be one or two individuals that are like, I don't really like him for what he done to me, or putting that sword onto me, or because he created the swords, or because he finished the war. I'm not sure on that approach, but perhaps there's going to be people like that, and that is where the divide might come in for Chihiro in trying to understand for himself, and not through the rose-tinted lenses, so to speak. Now, what's really cool with the sorcerer that teleports Hakuri and Uraha to the temple is also going to help fix and treat Hakuri for his ailment. At the moment, Hakuri's kind of shooting blanks. He doesn't really know what's going on. He's having some issues with his powers, right? It makes sense. He went overboard previously. They have a treatment room. This sorcerer, she's going to heal Hakuri in like 30 minutes. Compared to the handful of days that it was going to take, incredibly impressive. I don't know how this works. It's got a bunch of talismans on it, so I imagine it's more up her alley as being like a healer of sorts. Or maybe she just has an incredibly fine understanding on how human anatomy works, mixing it with sorcery and then having a great healing process because of it. Does that make sense? Basically, she seems incredibly confident that Hakuri will be done in 30 minutes. I love her already. So while all of this is happening, the base is getting attacked. And that's when you get the explanation by Uraha that Samura is a monster. This guy is a beast. He will hold things down for as long as possible. Hopefully, we are going to see some beautiful action come out to play. And I'm kind of conflicted because I really want to see Samura fight people. But at the same time, Chihiro versus Hirohiko, also really good. Where do we go? What do we do? Now, the people that pulled up obviously have stones. They're here. They're on business. They're trying to hold things down. But I do wonder if they also have a named Hishaku member. That's going to be the difference. This might be a great time to reveal new Hishaku members, similar to Hirohiko, people that weren't recognized before by Chihiro. Perhaps it is a great way to line up the power a little bit more evenly for the underling Hishaku and then the top brass, so to speak, the big wigs, the big hitters, all obviously equally powerful and scary, but diverse enough so you can kill them off or do whatever with them, and it doesn't directly impact the significance of the Hishaku group. the big guys at the top. I don't think they're going to be easy to deal with. But you never know, they might just send out the named people that we recognize from the beginning of the series, even though they said that they probably wouldn't do that because it's not worth the risk. See what I mean? A lot of great things in here. I'm excited to see where it goes, what Samura does, what Chihiro does, and how quick Hakuri is going to be back up on his feet, and to what extent. He could really end this in 30 minutes if he's able to be fully healed and get his swords, but naturally, it's probably not going to be that easy.